Dear students and my dear viewers, welcome back. In the previous session, we have discussed about ligaments of the vertebral column. Now in this session, we are going to discuss about the function of the vertebral column or the function of the spine, which includes kinematics of spine and the kinetics of spine. In this session, we are going to discuss about kinematics of spine, which mainly deals with the motions which are available in the vertebral column. That is, mobility of the spine is dealt by this kinematics of the spine. Okay, so in the entire vertebral column, the available motions, or one is the flexion. So this one is flexion or forward bending, and this one is the extension or backward bending, and lateral flexion or side bending. Lateral flexion or side bending, which occurs on right side as well as left side, and the rotation left side and the right side rotations are taking place in the spine. Okay, these motions appear to occur independently of each other. However, at the level of individual motion segment or mobile segment, these motions are often coupled. I have already explained this coupling patterns and also the what do you mean by coupling. So I want to recap once. The coupling is defined as the consistent association of one motion about an axis with another motion around a different axis. Okay, that is called as coupling motion. Okay, so out of all these motions, the predominant motions that exhibit coupled behaviors are the lateral flexion and rotation. At any region of the spine, it may be the cervical, thoracic, lumbar region, the lateral flexion is always associated with the rotation, and the rotation is always associated with the lateral flexion. A small degree, a very little amount of lateral flexion is associated with rotation, and rotation is associated with the lateral flexion. And these coupling patterns, which are available in the spine, are complex, and also they are different from region to region, and because they are mainly depend upon the spinal posture and curves, the orientation of the articulating facets, the fluidity, elasticity, and also the thickness of the intervertebral discs. So the intervertebral disc thickness and its fluidity and the elasticity, and also the extensibility of the muscles, ligaments, and the joint capsules. So all these affect the coupling patterns. Okay, now, so if you take a mobile segment, so this mobile segment normally consists of two joints. One is the interbody joints and the zygapophyseal joints, and the motions which are taking place in between these two joints are interdependent. Okay, and the motions which are occurring in the vertebral column or in three different planes. One is flexion extension in the sagittal plane, so which occurs in the AP axis, and lateral flexion, which is taking place at the coronal plane and the coronal axis, whereas the rotations are taking place at the horizontal plane over the vertical axis. Normally all these movements are going to coupled. Okay, during this lateral flexion and the rotation are always coupled. Okay, so those things we are going to discuss later. And now the motions at the interbody and the zygapophyseal joints are interdependent. The amount of motion available is determined primarily by the size of the disc, whereas the direction of the motion is determined primarily by the orientation of the facets, whether the facets are facing to in the sagittal plane or on the frontal plane. Okay, now how this size of the disc affects the amount of motion in between the intervertebral joints as well as the zygapophyseal joint. Now we will see. Okay, the motion that takes place between the vertebral bodies and the intervertebral joints is similar to what occurs when a rubber ball, so here this one is the schematic representation, when a rubber ball is placed in between two wooden blocks. Okay, two wooden blocks of wood. The blocks may be tilted or rotated. So here tilting is taking place. Tilted or rotated in any direction and may glide if the ball rolls. And it may glide if the ball rolls. Okay, this is the thing happening here. If the size of the ball is increased, the amount of tilting is also increased. If the size of the ball is decreased, the amount of tilting is also going to decrease. So here the ball represents the disc. Okay, if the size or the height of the disc is more, then the tilting is also, the tilting of the superior vertebrae with that of the adjacent vertebrae is also more. Okay, so for example, if you take a disc, okay, this is the disc. If the height of the disc is larger than the AP diameter and the transverse diameter, then the tilting is more. And the available range, the available motion in the sagittal plane, as well as the frontal plane is large. If the diameter is greater than, so the horizontal transverse diameter and the AP diameter is greater than the height of the disc, then the motion of that vertebral segment is more restricted. Okay, the motions of flexion and extension occurs as a result of the tilting and the gliding of the superior vertebrae over the inferior vertebrae. And this nucleus pulposus, so for example, if you consider this one as disc, the nucleus pulposus acts like a pivot, but unlike a ball, is able to undergo greater torsion since it behaves as a fluid. Okay. Regardless of the magnitude of motion, which is created by the ratio of disc height to width, a gliding motion occurs. Here you can see the only translatory motions, that is the gliding motion occurs at the zygapophyseal joints as the vertebral body tilts over the disc at the intervertebral joint. The orientation of the zygapophyseal joint surfaces, which varies from region to region, determines the direction of tilting and gliding within a particular region. That one we will see here now. So what is happening? That in the previous thing we have understood that the size of the discs affects the range of motion, whereas now the orientation of the facets are going to affect the direction of the motion. Okay, so for example, here we are having two vertebrae. One is at the level of lumbar and another one is at the thoracic region. If you observe the facets, so here this is the facing of facets. So this one is present, the orientation of the facets in the sagittal plane. So the movements of the superior vertebrae over the inferior vertebrae is greater at the flexion and extension. That means which favors such kind of orientation favors in the flexion and extension, whereas so this colored picture represents the movement of the vertebrae. So that is flexion and extension movement because of this facet. So now here the facet is on the frontal plane. So it is like this on the other side. So the orientation is like this, that is frontal plane orientation. So what will happen, this orientation helps the movements on the sideways, that is which helps in lateral flexion. So the amount of flexion and extension is restricted here and the lateral flexion is allowed here. Okay, such kind of facets allows or favors the lateral flexion. Okay, now we will move on to the individual motions, what actually happens during flexion and extension. Okay, in the vertebral flexion, so this one is the flexion and this one is the extension. What is going to happening here? In the vertebral flexion, there is an anterior tilting as well as gliding, anterior tilting as well as gliding of the superior vertebrae. Okay, anterior tilting. So here this one, this arrow mark represents the tilting, and here this one is gliding, so superior gliding. So here the gliding of this facet, okay, superior facet over the inferior facet of that mobile segment is going to take place. Okay, so such anterior tilting and gliding of the superior vertebrae over the adjacent vertebrae causes widening of the intervertebral foramen and also the separation of the spinous processes, and also causes separation of the spinous processes. Okay, although the amount of tilting is partly dependent on the size of the discs, tension in the supraspinous ligaments, and also interspinous ligaments, which resist the separation of spinous processes and thus limits the extent of flexion. And in other structures also there is a passive tension developed. The structures which develops passive tension are, one is the zygapophyseal joint capsules, okay, zygapophyseal joint capsules, and ligamentum flavum, okay, and also the posterior longitudinal ligament, and posterior longitudinal ligament, posterior annulus, and also the back extensor muscles also imposes control on excessive flexion. Okay, and in the lumbar region we can see the tension in the all posterior ligaments can be produced by the contraction of the hip extensors pulling downward of the pelvis, which also increases the tension in the thoracolumbar fascia produced by contractions of the transverse abdominis also can limit flexion by the pull of the fascia on the spinous processes in the lumbar area. Okay, all these things happened on the posterior aspect. What actually happens at the anterior aspect? So here the discs influence flexion because the anterior portion of the annulus fibrosus are going to compress. Here you can see, so the anterior aspect, there is a bulging of the disc we can observe on the anterior aspect. Okay, whereas the posterior aspect of the annulus fibrosus are going to be stretched. So these are the things happen during flexion. The reverse is going to happen in the extension. Okay, in extension what will happen? There is an posterior tilting and gliding of the superior vertebrae on the inferior vertebrae. And if you see the intervertebral foramen is narrowed and the spinous processes move close to each other. Okay, the amount of motion available in extension, in addition to being limited by the size of the discs, and it is also limited by the bony contacts of the spinous processes, tension in the zygapophyseal joint capsules, and mainly by the anterior fibers of the annulus, anterior trunk muscles, and mainly anterior longitudinal ligament. The only ligament which limits extension is the anterior longitudinal ligament. Okay, so here what will happen to the disc? So on the posterior annulus is going to compress, whereas the anterior annulus is going to be stretched. So these are the things happen during extension. Now we will move on to the lateral flexion. So here the lateral flexion, the superior, here you can see the superior view and this one is the posterior view. So the colored one is the superior vertebrae, okay, and this inferior vertebrae which is present in its position. So during lateral flexion what will happen here? The superior vertebrae tilts, okay, the superior vertebrae tilts over and also rotates. So here tilting you can find in this view and a rotation you can find in the superior view. Rotates over the adjacent vertebrae below. Okay, here what is happening in the lateral flexion? We can find two curvatures during lateral flexion. So this one is left side and right side. This is left side lateral flexion. On the same side we can find there is an concavity. On the right side we can find the convexity. These are the two curves we can observe during the lateral flexion. On the same side we can find concavity. On the contralateral side there is the curvature called convexity we can observe. Okay, the annulus fibrosus is compressed. Here you can see the annulus fibrosus are going to compressed on the same side, that is at the concavity of the curve. On the opposite side, that is on the convexity side, the annulus fibers are going to stretch. Okay, the passive tension in the annulus fibers, intertransverse ligaments and anterior posterior trunk muscles on the convexity curve, of the curve limit lateral flexion. So what are the things which limit the lateral flexion? The passive tension which is developed in the annulus fibers, okay, intertransverse ligaments, so these are intertransverse ligaments, and anterior and posterior trunk muscles on the convexity of the curve limit lateral flexion. Okay, the rotation that accompanies lateral flexion differs slightly from region to region because of the orientation of the facets. Okay, so these are the things happen during lateral flexion, and the rotation is available in each spinal region, but due to drastically different shapes of the zygapophyseal joints, the kinematics are going to vary greatly by region. So we are going to discuss this rotation in the particular regions. Okay, and another important thing regarding this lateral flexion, here you can see during normal curvature, when there is, so for example this one is also left side bending, so what will happen, so the tilting of the vertebrae on the same side, but the rotation is taking place on the right side. Rotation of the vertebrae is going to take place on the right side. Okay, so if you observe carefully at the facet joints, you can understood this kind of rotation. Okay, in the case of hyperflexion and hyperextension cases, during hyperflexion, when we bend sideways, the rotation is also on the same side. During hyperextension also, during hyperextension and you bend to left side, so the rotation also taking place at the left side only. So these are the things happened. These are the coupling movements we can observe during lateral flexion. So these are all about the kinematics of the spine. In the next session we are going to discuss about the kinetics of the spine. Thank you.